Hello. So we're carrying on, moving towards the end of our theme, actually, to nearly there, looking at the Buddhist Tantra or Vajrayana Buddhism. Not so much, Vajrayana practices, but what we can learn, what we can kind of, inspiration we can gain from that. And so by way of sort of recap, I won't be saying too much in here, but I want to mention a particular angle on Tantric Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, which is about transformation. So it's all about transformation, total transformation, we might say. And this is far more than just about improving ourselves. So improving ourselves is good, you might say, like becoming more kind or more aware, for example, or less distracted. But transformation means no part of us is left unchanged. So it really means stepping into the unknown, being open to a whole sense of who we are and what life is about, being completely, turned upside down, even broken apart, so that something new can arise in that, in the space that opens up, which for us, from our present state, is actually inconceivable, quite literally. And you might say this is what the Tantra is all about. It's about this really radical, total transformation. Actually, it's what Buddhism is all about. If we really kind of imbibe, the spirit of what the Buddha's getting at. Traditionally, it's said that the Tantric Buddhism is the way to attain enlightenment in one lifetime. So there's no messing about, right in there, like full total transformation. It harnesses and transforms all of our deepest energies, which is all of us. And this, we might say, is magic. So this is a theme we've touched on as well. Could say almost literally magic. By magic, I mean sort of an action that you perform whereby something miraculous and unexpected happens that you can't explain or understand. And as we've heard, so the Vajrayana took kind of a sort of folk, indigenous, mundane, magical rites and spells and such like that were being practiced in those ancient cultures and gave them a spiritual edge, or transformed them into spiritual practices that have this magical effect on our inner being and on our sort of the way on our being and transformation. We've heard about the rite of fascination, the whole area of falling in love, which Paranita talked about, and something also in the area of the rite of destruction. Though I'm not sure if we spoke about it quite in those ways, but Bodhi and I gave this talk on anger and fear, and how we harness those energies. And tonight we're going to be looking at what's called the rite of increase, or also known as the rite of enrichment, or the rite of prospering. So we're going to be looking at how we can use this powerful magic in our lives, but particularly through very concrete action. So concrete action. So not so much, like waving wands or Eye of Newton, toe of frog, and all that stuff, but really concrete action. So traditionally, the rite of increase, this sort of magic spell, would be something that people would use to try and help their business and their kind of, or their farm, prosper, sort of the material. It's about material prospering and security, getting good crops, getting your business deal to go down, whatever it might be, really. Becoming more wealthy. So Tantric Buddhism took this and made it more, sort of spiritualized it. And if we remember, so Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana, these are interchangeable words, just to say, so we use both of these. So Vajrayana employs these methods of visualization, invoking powerful archetypes and images to achieve its spiritual ends. And when it comes to the rite of increase or the rite of enrichment or prospering, so one practice that would sometimes be done would be to invoke a figure called Juggler, this very weird figure called Juggler. So he's yellow and fat and has like bulging eyes and holds a mongoose and squeezes the mongoose, and then the mongoose vomits jewels. Fantastic. We're surrounded by jewels from the mongoose. And so particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, this figure would be invoked to kind of bring about abundance. But it's actually sort of, we might say, not all traditions might agree with this, but we might say he's a kind of lower emanation of a much more sublime figure called Ratnasambhava. the yellow Buddha Ratnasambhava, who we have here. You can see. He's going to be there for the whole talk, kind of. I was going to say as our mascot, that's not right, as our something, giving us blessings. So yeah, he's the archetype of abundance, flourishing and prospering. It's sort of that whole principle embodied in the figure of a being, a person. He has a jewel in his left hand, this shining jewel, which is said to grant all wishes. It gives you everything you could possibly desire. His colour is gold, this kind of yellow, golden sort of colour of riches. His right hand is in the mudra, the hand gesture of supreme giving. So his hand is open, completely open. And this is all beautiful. So he's also said to be the Buddha of beauty. Everything about him and his world is beautiful. And in his realm, everyone gets everything they could ever possibly need, materially and spiritually, and more, actually, because of his generosity and the generosity he inspires in others. So this hand gesture is sort of the mudra, the gesture of generosity, open-handed generosity. And this, we might say, is the key. So this we're talking about rite of increase, Ratnasambhava being sort of a way we can contact this. But yeah, generosity, we might say, is the key, the principle, the fundamental principle behind this. The key to creating the sort of abundance that Ratnasambhava embodies. Generosity. And you might say it really is magic, generosity. So we'll be drawing this a bit out during this talk. So it brings about all kinds of marvellous and unexpected events beyond the act itself, if that makes sense. So that's what we'll be talking about for the rest of this talk, is about generosity. And we'll be becoming... Ratnasambhava will be making an appearance as well every now and then, sort of in this exploration. So I'm going to look at generosity from a few angles, or a few kind of titles. A few topics. So firstly, why be generous? Why give? Second, the spirit of generosity, the spirit of that counts. Thirdly, the paradox of generosity, or the paradox of giving. Fourthly, can you give too much? And then I'll save the last one to the end, because we'll keep that as a surprise. So firstly, why give? So I'm going to be drawing quite a bit on the Sangha during this talk. So he's the founder of our Buddhist tradition, and he has some really amazing stuff to say about generosity. I've mostly drawn from a book called Living Ethically, which is a really top book. Goes through quite a lot about ethics, but yeah, says some really good stuff about generosity. So one of the things he said is giving is the fundamental Buddhist virtue. Before taking up any other practice, one should learn to be generous. And I think this is quite something, actually. Many of us who come to the Buddhist Centre might think that, meditation, isn't that, the fundamental Buddhist practice, most important practice? You've asked people on the street, hey, what do Buddhists do? What makes you a Buddhist? And they're like, oh yeah, they're the ones that meditate. They might say that, and you wouldn't argue necessarily. And of course, meditation is very important, but I would say it's only if meditation isn't translating in one way or another in due course at some point into generosity, then it's not really Buddhist meditation. It's something else. So all Buddhist practices share this common goal of liberating us from our narrow, highly self-referential, egoistic ways of being, which are the root cause of our suffering. Yeah. So craving, hatred, delusion, it's all, it all comes in that package. And generosity is one of the most fundamental and basic and direct ways of working against this tendency. So it directly and immediately breaks through our fundamental delusion, actually. This delusion that we're the center of the universe. Rationally, of course we know we're not the center of the universe, but if we look actually emotionally in our views and the way we live our lives, of course there's this sort of a very strong, natural, it's not, we don't have to feel bad about it. It's kind of part of what makes us up, but this natural sense to feel like we need to always be sort of protecting ourselves. So generosity can break through that and open us up to this profound truth of interconnectedness, the way things really are, through concrete, direct, immediate, practical action, not through sort of reified ideas or heightened reflections, or whatever it might be, as good as they can be as well. So before taking up any other practice, one should learn to be generous. Traditionally, actually, this is how Buddhism was often taught. People would, you would learn first, ethics would be the first thing. That would be the main thing you would learn. And then eventually, maybe you'd get onto meditation. Some Tibetan traditions, I think they don't meditate for quite a few years, actually. But one should learn to be generous. So it's something we can learn. I've definitely really had to learn, and I'm still learning. So when I first came to the centre, and this isn't me being like harsh on myself, but I didn't really know how to be generous. I sort of kind of knew it would be a good thing to do, but I didn't really have the confidence, didn't really think I could do much, didn't think I could be particularly useful or helpful to anyone. It was a revelation for me to discover that I could do that, and I could learn to do that, and that I could actually have an effect on other people. And I thought, wow, gosh, no one's told me that before, that we can do this, and it's a practice, and you can just, try it out and learn it. It's a habit we can learn. And as well as we can learn it, we can always be generous. So there's this immediacy. So it's something that's always available to us. So we may not always feel particularly able or want to meditate, for example, or want to reflect or read books, whatever all these other forms of Dharma practice. But something we can always do is just be generous. We can do something. We could think, hey, what can I do for my friend? Or I don't know, even really, really simple things. Hey, I wonder if I could just water my plants, I don't know. Or could I do something for myself even? There's always ways you can reach out a bit and think, hey, what's going to be of benefit here to others? Sangha also says, if we can feel real concern for the needs of others, we will have made some progress, spiritually speaking. We've made some progress. So it's almost suggesting, spiritual progress is not measured in terms of deep insight experiences or necessarily profound meditations or whatever. It's about becoming more expansive, more creative, more connected with the life around us. That's really what we're doing. That's really what this is all about. It's what spiritual life is about. It's not about being a spiritual person, if you know what I mean. It's about this kind of this creative expansion with life around us. Or we could say, as an image, it's more and more, learning to go from this clenched fist that we all have to greater or lesser extent, more and more learning just to tease those fingers apart, moving more and more towards, this mudra that Ramana has, complete openness, generosity and openness. So secondly, the spirit of generosity. What do you mean, the spirit? So it's the spirit that counts. That's what I want to say. Something we hear about Buddhism, and particularly Buddhist ethics, is an ethics of intention. Doesn't mean the outcome doesn't matter. Of course but it's like the spirit of generosity is what makes it true generosity. So briefly, you might say, perhaps obviously, the spirit of generosity is a genuine desire to benefit others, genuine desire, and a joyful one, actually. So it's possible to be very outwardly generous, sort of doing a lot, being really helpful, but inwardly could be potentially quite the opposite. So an example might be a really rich person that gives money to a charity to really improve their public image, for example. Or we might wash the dishes, but always really resentfully, thinking, oh, why does my partner never do this? God. But we do it anyway, just to because we love fueling our own rage. And you think, oh, I'm being so generous. Why do you ever do, whatever it might be. And it's not to say that these actions might not have some benefit. Of course, giving loads of money to charity, it has a benefit. But the point being here is it's not what I'm going to be exploring. It's not true. The true spirit of generosity and giving. So we'll often have mixed motives. We hear this on the intro course, don't we? It's all of us. We can't wait to become perfectly pure in our intention before we start trying to be generous and trying to give more. And the sort of standard advice generally is just don't worry about it too much. If the main thing for the majority of us, one of the main practices here is just getting into the habit of little acts of generosity. And I think this even applies to, I'll say more about a bit more of the kind of like, what might I say, the darker side of generosity in a bit, but, well, it's not really generosity, but yeah, we'll come on to that. But even, even if you're somebody that's habitually very like doing a lot, and wanting to give all the time, I think one of the ways to cut through that is to stop and really think, hey, what do I want? What could I do for this or for that? Really small ways for people, for friends, whatever it might be. Not just going on to the habitual tendencies. Yeah, getting into the habit of just small acts of generosity can be really effective. But really importantly, I think, is looking for the joy to be had here. Yeah, so this is part of the inner spirit of generosity. You can see, Ratnasambhava is just blissful. This is kind of radiant, shining, golden abundance coming from giving, and it's an incredibly joyful thing. If the true spirit of generosity is flowing through us, we will feel thoroughly enriched and joyful. We'll feel like we're living in an abundant world where we get everything and more than we could possibly need. It's like, like this gold, this golden yellow realm, warm sun, everything, It's like sometimes it's said in his realm, it's like the kind of fields filled with this corn. I don't know if that means much to any of us, but I still love the image of this like rich, fertile fields. Thirdly, the paradox of giving. I think there's actually a few paradoxes here, or at least a couple that I'm going to draw out, but I'm going to start with one, which is the more we give, the more we receive. So that's kind of a sort of paradox, isn't it? So we might often talk ourselves out of giving because we don't want to lose something. We don't lose our time, our energy, our mood, I don't know, whatever it might be, our stuff, our money. But actually, if where generosity leads, the practice of generosity is we get back far more than we give. Even sometimes materially, that might not be the case. We can't, if we're really, the true spirit of generosity is we're not expecting anything in return. But I know, for example, a friend of many of us, Amoga Vangsa, he is someone who's incredibly generous. He would just give stuff and give his time, give his friendship, give his love so much. And like almost everything he owned had been given to him by others. And I think he famously said even his teeth were a gift or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so I think part of learning to be generous is learning more and more to sort of have faith in this principle that if we're generous in one way or another, we will get what we need. I think there is something almost, don't know, dare I say it, a bit like mysterious in that, or like a principle at work that can work through the universe somehow. We will in one way or another get what we need, so we don't need to be so tight-fisted. So yeah, there's this magical thing, which is the more we can give without any expected return, the more rich and abundant we'll become in our inner being, at the very least, in our inner being, So, and the less actually we'll feel the need for things to necessarily go our way in the outside world. We won't need so much. We won't feel that expecting so much. That inner abundance, realizing, that's the greatest riches, actually, like that kind of joy and contentment is actually what we're all looking for. So it's probably clear by now that, yes, sort of this spirit of giving without expecting anything in return, it's not self-deprecation. So it's what I heard the Dalai Lama once saying something about, like spiritual life or Dharma practice, and particularly benefiting others, and he called it being wise selfish. So there's this idea that we can either be wise selfish or foolish selfish. So we don't have a choice about whether we're kind of selfish or not. It's just we can just be foolish about it or wise about it. So using selfish in that sense, it's very natural. We all want to be happy. We all want to flourish and care for ourselves. So it's choosing to be wise, selfish. So realizing that the best way to be happy is to live in a way that's expansive and connected with others. Again, from Sangha he says, so if we're looking for a return from our generosity, we can find it in the freedom of letting go of possessions, in the natural pleasure we feel in helping someone, in the flow of energy out from us, as well as the flow of energy towards us. So these kind of much more subtle and satisfying pleasures, you might say. He also says, for the sake of the greater reward, you have to forget all about rewards and just give for the sake of giving. That's the paradox. So the greater reward, which you might say, you could say, is the jewel, the jewel that Ratnasamava holds, granting all wishes. To really gain that jewel, we have to give up trying to get stuff, give up even trying to get that jewel and just give. And that's the sort of this paradox: the open hand and the jewel, the open hand that's giving away everything, and then the jewel that grants all you could possibly desire, both there at the same time. I feel like I'd like to just briefly mention Susiddhi. I don't know, I did meet him, but he's somebody, just to kind of pay homage to him, he's somebody who's instrumental in founding this Buddhist centre. And he was just so generous with his time and his money. And when he realised the centre needed more money, he got a job. I think he was a pharmacist or something like that, but he got a job as a pharmacist, just so he could make money and give it to the centre. And I heard someone quoting him saying something about, like, he just felt the more he was giving away, just like the happier he was. It just really embodied this sense of joyful giving, and so many people benefited and were inspired by him. It's quite incredible, really. We owe him a lot. So, fourthly, can you give too much? So I've spoken a lot about about the joy of giving. The true spirit of generosity is a joyful thing. In practice, many of us may find that generosity doesn't always feel like that. You may have noticed it doesn't always feel like that, particularly if we're really committed to something, we've taken on a responsibility to really give ourselves to something. It doesn't always feel good to be always giving ourselves. Often on the intro courses, people would rightly ask, what about if you're giving too much? You're saying yes all the time. You're saying yes to your friends, yes to your relatives. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do this. Perhaps, really harming yourself in the process, or working really hard for a good cause, really applying yourself to this really noble, good cause, but then burning out in the process, really kind of, hurting yourself. And first thing I want to say is, I don't think there's like a really simple answer to this. Because I think sometimes, if we really care about something, a person or a cause, even a Buddhist centre, whatever it might be, we will want to give ourselves in a way that sometimes may feel painful and difficult. I think that's not something to shy away from, actually. Part of becoming a mature human being, I think, is being able to step up, to really step up in this way when the time calls for it, when the situation demands it. Something of that kind of like this warrior energy that the Buddha really embodied. I think there is really something in that. However, self-care is really, really important, isn't it? Of course it is. It's really important. Burnout nobody wants that. Well, there's some people it leads to a breakthrough sometimes, when these things happen, but self-care is really important. So if we don't have the freedom and courage to say no, then we can't really say yes. It's one way of putting it. So to be generous, we have to feel free not to be generous. And for many of us, that can be quite a hard-won place to get to, actually, to really feel that sense of freedom of, hey, I could just say no. Therefore, I could just say yes. Or, I will say no, whatever it might be. This is imagining, somebody's like asking something of you. So some of us may find when we give lots of time and energy, but perhaps like lurking beneath the surface, there might be a sense of inner lack or shame or emptiness that we're trying to cover over. We really don't want to stop and feel it, keeping ourselves busy. We're trying to perhaps maintain some kind of view that I'm a good person, I'm a helpful person, I do good things, therefore I am worthy of existing and worthy of love, and so on. And this, we might say, is a near enemy of generosity. So it's one of these, it's like an outward, perhaps might look very generous, but the inner spirit, probably due to not necessarily any fault of our own, it's not quite there yet. That's still to come. Can take form yet like compulsive need to feel useful. Something Sangha said, it's a virtue to be ornamental as well as useful, which I think is really good. It's a virtue to be ornamental. So this is a whole area of learning, as well as learning to be generous, we also need to learn to stop and really care for ourselves and listen, really listen to ourselves and create the space to do that, so that we can really nourish and support and enrich ourselves in other ways, so that that spirit of generosity can start to arise in a healthy way. So yeah, this is something I'm working with and still am, or have done and still am. Having learned, came not really knowing how to be generous. I've not necessarily learned how to do it the best ways, and it's something I'm still very learning to work with. For me, what I come up quite across a lot is more of like a kind of fear of failure. And if I'm not careful, it can lead to my pouring my energy out in a way that's fueled more by anxiety and fear, rather than actually a desire to benefit people and benefit the centre. So I work at the Buddhist Centre. I just want to feel safe and secure. And as long as I'm there's a risk of me not getting my to-do list done, I do not feel safe and secure, because then I'll fail and everyone will see how terrible I am, and then I'll die. I laugh, but it can feel like this. It can really tap into quite deep stuff, I think, this whole area, particularly around work. Yeah, of course, I'm not like that deep under the surface, but that's the fear, isn't it? That's what can come up. Some of you may recognize this. Yeah. But as we've explored already, so if we really are in touch with the spirit, the true spirit of abundance, generosity releases energy and delight rather than taking it away. So that's something we can try and sensitize ourselves to and look for, really. So Sangha actually says something about this in his book Wisdom Beyond Words, which I really love. I've not got the exact quote here, so I'm sort of paraphrasing a bit. But he has this chapter where he really evokes this incredible vision of the Bodhisattva ideal and serving this greater vision and benefiting others. But then goes right back and starts talking about, but hang on, you need to actually really look after yourself as well. And he says something like this: for many of us, so after realizing that the greatest benefit and happiness is to be found through benefiting others and generosity, we then often need to take a step back and realize that we need to help get ourselves into a healthy, happy human state, so that our giving can begin to flow more naturally and spontaneously. Yeah. So it can flow from inner abundance. I don't know if this is traditional, but I do like to think Ratnasambhava as open hand. It's this mudra of giving, but for me there is really something about openness there, and something about open, and that includes opening up to myself as well. I'm a being as well. We're all in this together, and opening up to life wherever it is, and I'm alive, so I'm opening to that as well. So there's this sense of kind of opening that hand up to everyone, including myself. So to finish, we're getting there, nearly there. So the last section is where is this all leading? So I think there might have been a sort of hyphen and a bit of extra in the title of this talk, which is building a new world. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, building a new world. So generosity, or this rite of increase, you might say, that we're exploring as generosity. So it's not just about enriching our own state of being, and it's not even just about enriching individual other people. That's all amazing and fantastic. That's the motivation. That's why we do it, and that's marvelous. But ultimately, it's actually about building. You might say it's about building a new world. It's about building a new world through community, or Sangha. Sangha, we might say, is this ideal of what human relatedness could be, what human society even could be in a kind of microcosm. And by that, I don't mean the whole world, the idea is that the whole world becomes Buddhist and salutes the three jewels. I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But I'm more saying the principle of Sangha being something much more fundamental and human, about how human beings could relate to each other in community. And generosity is you might say, is kind of the lifeblood of this. So generosity promotes generosity in others. Abundance is contagious. Mutual generosity brings people together and creates something much greater than the sum of its parts. Sangha creates abundance and is created through abundance. It's the lifeblood of the community. Mutual giving, sharing, even gratitude and celebration. I love that, we have the shared meal beforehand. It always has a sense of like, we have this line in the Sheffield puja we do, which is, inviting all beings to a great feast of delight. May all beings rejoice. I always rejoice when I see Anna's food. It's always delicious. I mean, you all make great food, I'm not saying that, but, particularly like Anna's food. Yeah. So Sangha, we might say, is a community of mutual self-transcendence. So, which is actually a way of talking about what the whole point of Buddhism is, actually. Even what the whole point of life is, this sort of bringing about something much greater than the sum of its parts, participating in that, thoroughly enriching ourselves and realizing our own deepest aspirations in the process. So this is the jewel, we might say, symbolized by the jewel that Ratnasambhava holds. This jewel, sometimes referred to as the bodhicitta, the awakening mind. So this is the priceless jewel that is everything we could possibly ever want or need. So yeah, generosity is more than just about getting good work done and being useful. Good work done does get done, and useful things do happen through generosity. But the real magic is actually, I would say, is the inspired community that generosity creates, or helps to create, and how that inspired community can enrich and uplift people that come into contact with it, particularly those that also participate in it. And I think you can feel this atmosphere. You can feel it as an atmosphere, and you can feel it almost as soon as you come in the building, I would say. I felt it in other spiritual contexts as well. When you enter a sort of building where real spiritual practices happen, there you can almost feel it. I know people have said this, and I've said this as well. It's like, you can come to Sangha Night and you just walk through the door, and before you've even seen anyone, it's like, something's happening, something's getting inside, And that's mysterious, isn't it? How does that work? I don't know. But it does, as far as I can tell. And yeah, generosity. So it's one of the core principles of our centre, of the Sheffield Buddhist Centre. It forms the basis and vision of like what we're actually trying to do here and what we're about. So our centre is about creating a world of abundance and flourishing through Sangha, through spiritual community. And we say this at the end of the intro course. I remember hearing this and thinking, yeah, whatever. But it's like, we're not primarily about trying to just give people practices which they then just take home and sort of do on their own. We believe that the greatest benefit for others we can offer is actually inviting people to participate within Sangha, in spiritual community, and building spiritual community. So there are many ways, I could just list off a whole list of the ways, we might do this, or ways that we do this, because I suppose it's a bit of celebration as well, and rejoicing at the incredible generosity of our Sangha. But there are many ways we can do this. I do this. I mean, and I'm not going to list them all, but yeah, I've got 3 things. First one, the first 2 are a bit more obvious, I might say. So the first one is giving time and energy. Volunteering. Bringing food for the great feast of delight, helping on intro courses. That's a really, really incredible, I find, really delightful way you can contribute. We've got our Sangha Works days, we've got weekly volunteering teams. You could just ask, hey, could I just help? Is there any way you could help? There's so many ways that people give their time and energy. And it always delights me to see, and I was like seeing Sarah and Janet painting this hallway, and whenever I see them getting on with stuff, I kind of say, oh, thank you so much. But I can kind of tell, and I can do say that sometimes, but at the same time I can tell, hey, they're doing this because it's their community and they want to really do something. We don't need to thank them. There's no like service happening. It's just, hey, we're doing this together. Secondly, there's the Dano Economy. Again, a bit of another chance to celebrate. We said a bit about this recently, haven't we? Because we had a sort of annual Dharma appeal. But yeah, this principle, give what you can, take what you need. It's amazing that people can just come here for free and just keep coming here for free if that's what they want to do. It's fantastic, and that we can offer that. And that there's so many people that just give money and generously give money, and it allows so much to happen. And we don't do the Dano Economy because it's like because we've figured out that, oh, that would be the best way to get money. Not at all, actually. Like, we do the Dano Economy because it builds Sangha, because of this atmosphere, because of this abundance that it helps to create. We're like trying to, sort of, in the Dano Economy is like a way of practicing this rite of increase. It's like almost like a magical spell that kind of just permeates the whole center, this sort of energy and atmosphere that helps to create, I think is so priceless. And if it means we get less money and, we can't do as much, then I think it's worth it, because it's such a precious and wonderful thing. If we were charging for classes, I think our centre would be less enriched. It would be less fertile. Thirdly, in terms of ways to give, friendship. In some ways, I think this is arguably one of the most important, actually. It's our community is formed through friendships. It's because we often think of generosity primarily in terms of charity, perhaps, don't we? We give this thing or we give this money and it benefits these people over there who we don't necessarily know very well. But it's said, I don't know where this was said, it might have been another Sangha quote somewhere, I can't remember where I got this, but anyway, it says, someone says, anyway, the greatest gift is to be available to another. The greatest gift is just to be available to another human being. So this is, you might say, really actually giving yourself, ourself, which is the most precious thing, giving that to another human being through friendship. And this is incredible. And as I say, it's the sort of what forms our community, it's what binds us. And it's perhaps one of the greatest delights as well, spiritual friendship, coming together through metta and kindness and generosity. It's beautiful. Vivekananda, this morning when I was saying about giving this talk, and you were it was amazing. You said, "Oh, I'll give this talk on generosity," and you said something about friendship, and then you just like went off on this kind of, friendship, it's amazing. Like, you're there, and then there's this person, and suddenly they've got their arms around you, and then there's life in your cheeks and life in their cheeks, and you're sweating and all this. I was like, wow. So I don't know if I got that quite right, but I don't know. It's just like, it's just I just find like being with a friend and talking about friendships. Like, this is amazing, really. So, lastly, I'm going to finish with just a bit of a tip, really, or an invitation. So what I want to say is, so if you really want to benefit from coming to this Buddhist centre, if you want to be really, really wise, selfish, I might say, so really get stuck in and find ways to contribute. Find ways to give and participate in enriching our Sangha, even in really, really small ways. And do it with others, like when you do things with others. Something we were reflecting about in the team earlier. Like some people come together and help set up the Sangha Night. When you do things together with others, it's just play, it's fun. And I'm not saying this as a ploy to try and get more stuff done and to get more money for the centre. I'm saying this because I really believe that generosity is liberating. It leads to the heart's release. It leads to our greatest benefit and the greatest benefit for others, the greatest happiness. We have something really beautiful, I think, in the centre, because that's one of our core principles, and it become even more beautiful the more we can participate in that vision. And, and through that, ourselves and others, hopefully, in time, we can really start to discover, what this human life is about, I suppose. The greatest value in human life, this wish-fulfilling jewel that Ranasambhava holds. We sometimes call that enlightenment, don't we? I've not mentioned that word yet, but yes, enlightenment, the wish-fulfilling jewel. Thank you.